Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Susan Peiffer. It is my honor to be here and hosting this evening as we start our celebration of Ashley Cornelius being commissioned as the 6th Poet Laureate of the Pikes Peak region. The Pikes Peak region, our service area, is situated on the ancestral homeland of the Ute peoples, who are the Southern Ute, the Ute Mountain Ute, and the Northern Ute. Other tribes who lived and hunted on this land include the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Comanche, and Apache. Even through forced relocation and land dispossession, we recognize that the land still holds Ute traditions, language, stories, and history. Today, Indigenous people from many Native nations reside here and continue to make significant contributions to our community. So again, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your participation in the poetry community. My name is Susan Peiffer. I work with Here Poetry. And it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the Executive Director of the Library District, whom I know to be a champion of words, a champion of reading, a champion of advocacy and others, someone who lifts people up and is a defender of our rights and our noble calling to say whatever we have to say in the ways we have to say it. Please welcome to the podium, John Spears.
Hello. I can honestly say that I have never had an introduction like that before in my life, so thank you. Kind of flattered. I can also say that I'm incredibly nervous because the thought of public speaking surrounded by poets is a little bit daunting. So this will be bad prose. So I want to start, I've been in this position now for close to 6 years, and one of the first events that I ever had the honor of being a part of as the Executive Director of the Library happened on Sunday, April 24th, 2016. And that was the day that we inaugurated the 5th Poet Laureate, Susan Peiffer. And it's been a long time since that happened. And Susan followed a long list of really excellent poets. Aaron Onstead, Jim Gilletti, Price Strobridge, Dr. Janice Gould in this project. This project started in 2008, so it's been going for 13 years. And it started with my predecessor, Paula Miller, who was the Executive Director of the Library, and Jim Gilletti, and Sue Hammond, and many others that had a love of poetry and a recognition that they wanted poetry to reach further into the community and to become ingrained in what Colorado Springs is. The past 2 years, we haven't had a poet laureate. And I think it's safe to say that the past 2 years have been unlike any other. So it was with a huge amount of gratitude in 2020 that I was contacted by Jim Gilletti and contacted by others as well that said it's time. It's time to bring back this program. We need a poet laureate. And they were right, because we need poetry right now. Poetry can amuse, it can anger, it can challenge, it can illuminate, and it can heal. And I can think of no period in my lifetime where we have needed all of those more than we need those things right now. And honestly, I can think of no poet more appropriate to this time and to that task than Ashley Cornelius. I'm kind of a fanboy of Ashley. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I've heard you so many times, and I've just been a guy back in musicians that you probably didn't even notice. But your poetry is amazing. And you are amazing. I'm just gonna, this is the part I'm gonna read, because I have to, and it's about Ashley. Ashley is a national, well, I don't want to get this wrong. Ashley Cornelius is a nationally recognized and award-winning spoken word poet in Colorado. Her poetry has been featured in TEDx Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak Community College, the Colorado Springs Women's March, Denver Public Library, the Colorado Nonprofit Association, as well as on many stages. Additionally, she was a 2018 Woman of the World Poetry Slam Colorado Springs representative, and she competed nationally. She's a winner of multiple poetry slams in Colorado Springs. She's also Colorado Springs Independent Best Artist in 2019, and was recognized by the Colorado Springs Business Journal as a Rising Star in 2021. More importantly, though, she's someone who has touched so many people in this community with her words, with her passion, and with her advocacy. The past 2 years have brought this community and our nation and our world illness, death, political turmoil, strife, uprisings, and fear. But it has also brought us demands for equality, a recognition that we don't have to settle, time to examine our lives, and a renewed sense that if there is a change we want to see, we can't just sit by idly and wait for other people to bring it about. We have to do it ourselves. This is a time when we need poetry that amuses, that angers, that challenges, that illuminates, and that heals. And I hope I'm not putting too much on you with this, Ashley. But you can do this. And on behalf of the library, and I think everyone here, thank you for taking this honor on.
Thank you so much, John. We have a lineup of excellent poets for you to listen to before we get to the meat of our ceremony today. John briefly listed the past Poets Laureate. We started in 2008 with Aaron Amstead, who is not able to be here today, but who did leave I do have a page to read for you actually from Aaron. Following Aaron was Jim Chiletti, who is the spearhead of the Poet Laureate Project and the reason why we're back in motion. Strobridge, whom we love and adore, and I had the opportunity to work with as in his tenure as Poet Laureate. We did several school visits and got to read poetry together, and I got to work with Price through Sue Hammond, who is the reason I was able to be Poet Laureate after Dr. Janice Gould. So, yeah, here. This is from Aaron Amstead. I wish I could be there in person to warmly congratulate Ashley Cornelius on this honor and to thank the Pikes Peak Library District for reviving our region's Poet Laureate project. With her long-standing experience of cultural outreach and arts activism, not to mention her gifts as a poet and performer, Ashley will serve our communities well. I wish her the best, and I am excited to see that stuff she does. I really like Poetry 719's slogan. I like that it's 4 syllables shorter than the group's name, and that it's 3 stressed syllables. Molasses is what the metrical foot is called in the trade, and that it's open to possibilities. And I like poems that do stuff. In this month's The New York Review of Books, an Australian novelist, Shirley Hazard, is quoted saying, "Poetry literally and figuratively saved my life." I'm glad that Ashley, too, knows that poetry is good medicine. When I served as the region's first Poet Laureate back in the mists of 2008 to 2010, I made an effort to promote and read other people's work, which I'm going to do now in closing. Janice Gould, the 2014 to 2016 Pikes Peak Poet Laureate, was Comcow and won awards from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Astor Foundation for Lesbian Writers, among others. Janice passed away in 2019. This is her poem, Tribal History. Tribal History. When I think of my mother's hands, brown and square, fingers slightly bent from years of work, I consider all the other hands of Comcow Maidu folk, bound, prepared for the lynching at the Crooked Oak, along the mountain road near the town of Cherokee. It stood not far from the meadows where our ancestral people made their home. This was in the time when white men scoured those hills, breaking them down into rubble in a crazy search for gold. The treaty with the Concow could not be ratified by Congress, for Indians were in the way of progress. And though a promise had been made to provide cornstarch and other commodities to every man who made his X on that scrap of parchment, the only X the white men made was to cross the hands of Indians behind their backs before swinging them out over the lava walls of the canyon. That was Dr. Janice Gould. It is my adjunct pleasure to please welcome Price Strobridge to the stage to share a little bit of his poetry with you. This is Price Strobridge. Come on up over this side, Price.
Ooh, I had a really big question pop in my mind. Why am I here? What shall I do? Well, it's good to be here on this beautiful occasion, and I just wanted to thank everyone who, how this all comes to be behind the scenes, and grateful for PPLD and all the way back to old Ben Franklin invented that idea. So I'm going to just do a few shorts and one long. I want to start with a poem that involves all the arts because I guess this is October. It's now it's Arts Month in Colorado Springs. So, you know, there's people like Copper and Pikes Peak Radar and all these folks that make these things happen. So this poem involves all of the arts and their curative properties. It was inspired by a little epigraph my wife's girlfriend Betsy gave her from Novellis, who lived in the 1700s, and he wrote, "Poetry heals the wounds inflicted by reason." And wow. So I wrote this poem called Catharsis. Beauty's voice cries out in the wilderness, summoning art to clear away the scattered stones that block our way, purging frustrations, turbid emotions, taming to art tumultuous oceans, blood to ink, essence to art, clearing the stones that clutter the heart. And then I think I'll do a little poem called A Curving of Color. And it was inspired by dead poets, Hafiz of the 1300s wrote something. I wish I could just show you how much light is in your being. And Baczynski, life curves on like a parabola, and every now and then like a rainbow. So those are misquotes, but they serve their purpose for this coach's poem. A curving of color. When no such thing as thing is thought, love, outseeing sight, will bend and shape the light until I is only I, but you, wholly you, are altar item to the morning prism dew. When ear hears loudly, only heart, since heart hears clearly more than ear, the sound inside the thunder stops. Then cloud becomes before clear eyes, a crystal mist in lighted skies, where there in air transluces you, curve upward through the light, the lovely, lovely light as 7 colors bowed. Oh, here's a poem. It's real spacey and wordplay. I do a lot with oxymorons and palindromic wordplay. This is just an odyssey of oxymoron. The whole thing is a whole bunch of oxymoron. And it's called Black Hole. And our seeking And our finding is a losing and a leaving. And our growing but a shrinking into shadows, shedding light, where denser darkness sparks a glimmer, brighter than all the suns we know, still farther than poets pipe us, is a constant growing glow of black, into which is drawn all things brightly darkening, becoming finally fully expanded into ultimate collapse, the density of which is equal to one, totally fragmented whole. Okay, I'll close with this poem and read it. It's called The Keeper, and it fits all the arts. The Keeper, 1. Something dawned on her, bigger than the day, but she could not quite say just what. And she, a poet, poetry, her passion, what she fondly calls her calling. Still, it keeps her struggling to capture the pure, simple cadence of the dawn, keeps her grappling to extract an exact sequence, a syntax, cascading in raging rays to explode in flaming brilliance across her rising mind. Her perturbations push her toward the poem, keeps her hoping the next word will be the one they must use to encipher what dawns rise from so deep inside her. It keeps her. 2. Something strange he felt just then, something older than the oldest stone shook him like a hammer blow. He felt an ancient energy transfer to his core, but he could not chisel it free from deep within the marble stone. It keeps him, though, keeps him at his work to carve that certain curve, sculpt just what it was that shook him so, keeps him dreaming his next hammer blow will be the one to release the ancient sun locked so long away inside the telling stone. It keeps him. 3. There's some colossal greatness in the air. He felt it brush against his brow, yet he can't quite get his paint to paint his face. Doesn't know quite how to paint the face, go deeply in and pull it out. It keeps him, though, working on his strokes, keeps him searching for the proper hue, simplest line, subtle hint, or mix of dark and light, and the slightest shadow to unshadow it. It keeps him hoping his next stroke will be the one to paint the dawning greatness in the air. It keeps him. And as your congratulations, may you keep on keeping the keeper and well, just keep on doing what you're doing so good. Thank you.
Franklin Cruz is the epitome of a poet. Creativity, warmth, and safety emits from them whatever they hold as space in poetry or in the community. Ashley met Franklin while working at Art from Ashes, and it was instantly magic when they were able to create together or facilitate workshops. Ashley has always looked up to Franklin in terms of his poetry and the way that they facilitate. She credits her ability to hold space for others and use poetry as facilitation tool, largely due to the influence of Franklin. Franklin is fully themselves at all times, and in their poetry, the things they love, what they're passionate about, and their work as an activist is reflected in the poems they share and the communities they support. Ashley is so grateful to have Franklin as a friend, as a poetry inspiration, and as a creative. Franklin was one of the first folks and influences as Ashley started her journey really leaning into the poetry as her profession and passion. Franklin's work is deeply beautiful and an honor to witness. Please let me introduce Franklin Cruz, who is clearly one of the most kind and gentle, warm and welcoming souls all the way up here. Here they are. It's good to see you too.
Sorry, I just had to ask Susan who wrote that bio. She's like, Ashley. I was like, of course. Literally. Ugh. And I was like, so me and Ashley had this understanding, but in the back of the audience, I was like, how dare you? What lies? All lies. Because I credit Ashley for half of these things too. So I'm just kind of like, this is not true at all. But you know, whatever. We're just friends, and that's what friends do. We're just like, no, you did that. And I was like, you did that. Right? But yeah, I think little memories and things in context. When we first started, we were like big kids in college and right out of college and everything like that. And you know, our boss was trying the best that they could, but also at the same time wasn't, you know, making the best environment. So we had each other's backs. Because at that moment it was just kind of like, oh hey, so we're about to go into this workshop and do these workshops that we're just like have to do because of work, but at the same time, if we were running the program, we probably would have asked less triggering questions. But at the same time, we're just like, what are we going to do at 22, 23, right? We're just like not knowing, and so we just have to like figure it out and then go into a workshop with all these little kids who are like, who the hell are you? And then you're just like, we're going to talk about your parents. And they're like, oh, hell no. Right? That's what we did all the time. And then having to be like, okay, but on a real note, this is what could happen if you talk about these conversations and really unpack what it means to know these relationships and examine these relationships within yourselves. And then we had wonderful transformation. But also, that's because we did what we had to do, right? And so in that context, like a lot of what we saw in each other and a lot of what we grew out of that is what you guys see today. Because it was a matter of like, hey, so we're in a situation, we gotta do the work because like we're here, but at the same time, like this is the tools that we have and it's not much. You're like, okay, cool, let's make magic anyway, right? So in that, I have this little number for you actually. So, Ashley, you showed me how to make a heart, mind, and integrity all work together. There are whole lies I stopped believing in because of you. Truth I accepted for myself. Truth I dreamed and saved myself in. We both know that this whole world is pretty much made up, so why not make up a better ending than our beginning? Constructed like a cosplay or like jewelry or homes by communities, practices, and ideologies. Look at everything our hands have molded. This is everything our teeth have spoken, that our minds have collaborated with others in. This is for those who know how art is the great equalizer between all cultures. Ashley, this is to the sky that you make within people. How you take their rib cages and make them atmospheric. This is to the meteorologists you become amongst the poets I appreciate and love everything about you. You move with integrity in every single organization you occupy space in. I wonder if any of you truly know how much work she has actually done. The amount of emotion she has navigated. The calories burned, hours invested, distance covered, the applications, bios read, the people hosted, and the poets engaged, and the audiences who are always just spectating. The amount of gallons of air processed, the amount of neurochemicals and hormones emitted, the hours of straight psychotherapy afforded for most folks, because in this industry, if you work long enough, you know we do poetry because most of us can't afford therapy. She's fully aware of it. And a lot of the work she does in her everyday, like you see it here, is most of it is like a good rainstorm on a crop or well-deserved winter season and a rest after the fall harvest. This is all the work culminating into this one instance where we celebrate a person who is just as big as a legend. We're out here. We're thriving. We're feeling. We're home. We're holistic. We are ancestors. We are future. We are here because we have each other's backs.
Franklin, thank you so much. Almost as big as a legend. Absolutely. Making legends as you go. So many poets are beautiful cynics, wearing the jaded robes of their teen angst with all the purple grandeur that velvet, ermine, crowns, and royal egos used to muster. Most poets I've met are prepared to present a poem of personal perfection, pieces persistently prone to provide positive reception. But the preening self-prestige and the gleaming self-perception turns too many poets into prom kings. It is ironic, Ms. Moore said, To pilgrim the change from poetry's peasant to the opposite range where poetry's princes are begging to be my liege. I challenge them. Ask me a question, tell me a story, or give me a kiss. If you ask for my performance, I will cringe. All the same, most poets are players in this wordsmithing game, so I wrote it in 4th grade with sugar-grim lips and stars in my eyes, 26 letters to garnish the skies. A, B, beautiful, C, comet. D, dances, E, elegantly, falls gracefully. Heaven sent iridescent juggernaut, kaleidoscope of lunar magnificence. Nighttime's opulent paradise quietly rockets through the stars tonight. Unearthly variegations whirl into the exanthus yellows of morning. Zoom. Or tell me a story. Tell me a story like novels are written on caskets just after twilight's past, midnight's dance to the dawn. My memory longs for immortal gestures like bright wilting flowers in front corner pockets, and instead we recall each other in broken breast lockets with the bones of our poems could hatch passion birds, launch phoenix words, and write Icarus back to the sun. Give me a kiss, and let truth blister your tongue. Those who request the sanctity of lips are rarely those ready to worship. But the poet who mattered wrote stories off stage, left questions unanswered until the last page, said, when I breathe into your neck, I feel a bit of Israel. And so exhaling desert into a shoulder oasis and living on a faith without words, many poets are beautiful cynics, but they have a tenderness I believe in. Thank you. Ashley met Nico Wilkinson by cold calling them, asking them to be a poet at an event for Art from Ashes. Art from Ashes. Art from Ashes is a nonprofit organization in Denver who works with young people through poetry as a medium of education and healing and expression. It's an organization that invites several guest poets into workshops, both live and virtual, and it's a huge, wonderful network. I strongly encourage you to look into it, volunteer, since it's virtual things, go through that program, but Art from Ashes. Ashley had only heard great things about Nico and their work as a poet, and that they would be perfect for this event. Little did Ashley know that Nico would become a huge part of her development as a poet. Nico is not only one of the most amazing poets in the Colorado Springs scene, but also has created meaningful and important space for queer communities. Nico asked Ashley to feature at Keep Colorado Springs Queer in 2016, which was Ashley's first official feature. That night changed a lot of things for Ashley. It made her fully believe in who she is and that her poetry was worth listening to. Nico has continued to be an important presence in her life and has taught Ashley many things in the development of her work. Nico has a way with words, which you will hear as they perform, and Ashley is forever grateful for the opportunity that launched Ashley into performing across Colorado Springs and other stages. And most importantly, Ashley is grateful for the friendship and community they get to share with Nico. My friend is Nico Wilkinson.
So, as stated, I met Ashley through Art from Ashes, and so from the jump, I just watched you as you used poetry to empower people to heal themselves through poetry, and the way that you've just continued to do that through the spaces you hold for people, and continuing to hold that space, even through the pandemic, even through this collective trauma, has been so, it's been witnessed, it has been valued, it has been appreciated, because I know it's hard. And I'm just so glad that you're here as an organizer, a therapist, and now as Poet Laureate. There is no one more suited for this position, Ashley. I wish I had an ode for you. I just have gay feelings. So, let's see. Everything's an ode to Ashley, and like all poetry in this city. My girlfriend's therapist and my therapist have told us to manage our anxiety by picturing a safe place when a panic attack is coming. Separately, we each chose the memory of Eagle Beach on San Juan Island, her running into the surf bombarded by gentle cold water, and me picking through the sand for fragmented shells, stones, broken crab legs, a jigsaw puzzle of life when no life is left. I wonder at the strangeness of mountains of smooth driftwood stacked up like the bones of giants. I take some of the sand home in my nails, as well as in a container I use to carry cold pasta from the small, overpriced, only grocery store on the entire island, which I ate in a nest I made in the sand, kind of like a turtle, but mostly like a human. Humans do small and beautiful things. It would take a while for me to realize this. The first time I had a panic attack was just past crayon age, when I realized that humans cause global warming and I was a human. It would be years until I realized that only some humans really cause global warming. Some just want to have beautiful moments at the seaside. Some just want a few stones to worry between their fingers. I heard so often as a kid that if every person took a stone, then there would be no stones left. And then I heard about mines and quarries, and about how there are stones in the world that only exist now in Capitol buildings. Humans are beautiful, in the way that they see a stone, little microcosm of the beautiful world, and want to put it on their windowsill. Still want to remember, but are told to pick stones on shelves through the gatekeeper of rock shops, leave no trace, while the world is traced on a blueprint of pipelines and supply chains. So I confess, I took them home with me, the dark red stone, the opalescent remnant of a clam, a pinky's worth of driftwood, and a handful of sand. I took the memory of a beautiful place so I can remember when I am locked in the whir of automotive anxiety and concrete cacophony that it's out there. A seaside, slowly on its way to me. Thank you. You might say I'm burning out. Really, it's that the light inside of me is flickering. And isn't that what I get for leaving it on day in and day out? Eyeballs bulbing into the night, trying to catch a glimpse of every ill-fated possibility, and my imagination constructing monsters beyond the barrier of where the light no longer reaches. I am terrified of everything I do not know, because so much of what I thought I knew well has tried to hurt me. One might argue that the things I knew best have hurt me the most, or perhaps the things that knew me best, and by things I usually mean people, and by people I usually mean myself, and by myself I mean that I let people be mirrors. Even though they were broken, just like me, and waiting 7 years for their skin to shed and grow in the hopes they'd also be something new. I am always new, and never new, because my cells keep passing down their memories. I want to tell my neurons, I know you think this is valuable information, that you must bestow upon your young. Some of it is. Some of it you can let go. At your wake, I would like to bury the pain with you. I will kiss it in the open casket and will bury you and your knowledge with all due respect. Let me feel it all anew. May the fight become boundaries. May the flight become a challenge. May the freeze become contemplation. May the fawn become a static. There was a time where every emotion clinked and glittered. I collected them in a jar. I would trade them, I would shoot them into dirt circles and bounce all my smaller feelings around them. All that refracting light. Show me a telescope from space so I might see it again. Thank you. And I have just one more poem. This is called a spiritual experience turned medical becomes spiritual again. Perhaps one day, I will take these oily, damp testosterone bottles and affix them onto fairy lights, and ode in the way to make me both that, fairy and light. All the rest of this ritual, all my biohazard insides go into a plastic container so that I stay very much inside of my own self, but I confess. I have lied about having sex with and being half of men who have sex with men, so I could swim, so my blood could swim in the veins of the dying. And I am not sorry, because all that blood is tested, and I am tested, and that is a sort of love, to give your blood even if your blood is unwanted, even if it might save the life of a person who wants you dead. On my thighs, there are 2 round circles of tall dark hair where each weave the needle nestles in. If I were shrunk down small, it would look like an aspen forest in winter. If I put my ear to the ground, I would hear the murmuring of a single organism through its roots. Statistically, my blood has backstroked through a bigot's veins by now. Being queer is not contagious, but sometimes I wish it were. I dream of that sort of softness creeping into a man's face as he looks in the mirror and wonders at a new kind of beauty. Ashley, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for having me here, and congratulations.
Ashley met Chris Beasley at her first feature in 2016. They exchanged a few words, and that was the end. The next year, they featured together for the NAACP, and later on, Chris asked Ashley to help with Colorado Black Voices Matter, an event that they had created highlighting and uplifting Black voices. Ashley jumped on the chance to be part of the poetry that centered on Black artists. Chris, a nationally recognized spoken word artist and a seasoned Slam team member, had been creating spaces for art and poetry and music in Colorado Springs for a long time. Ashley was struck by Chris's determination and passion to build a community for historically silenced voices within the arts. Ashley and Chris's friendship grew into a love story and an empire as they co-directed Poetry 719. Chris motivated and pushed Ashley to widen her range in poetry and provided a lot of mentorship and support as Ashley honed her craft. Chris is a brilliant poet and is an exceptional coach and teacher. The work that Chris has done with Poetry 719 and engagement with the arts community, it's such a big reason why poetry is flourishing. Chris has been a steadfast support for Ashley in her journey as a poet, organizer, and leader in Colorado Springs. Ashley is honored to call Chris her partner in poetry and in life. Chris Beasley is one of the poets. I'm not done. I got something to say about you. I've known Chris since, I think I met you in 2008, but certainly since 2012 when I moved to Colorado Springs and became invested in literary arts in the region. Chris is and has been, and I believe will continue to be, the heartbeat of poetry in Colorado Springs. He is the muscle that pumps the blood, that puts the energy, that has the ideas, that says, hey, why don't we try? Why don't we do this? What would it look like if we? And Chris is a dreamer and a poet, and to have seen him on his first national stage and move from that rookie open mic into someone who can coach and teach and whose heart is always in uplifting others. Please welcome to the microphone, it's Chris Beasley.
I wanna get all that, and it's all recorded, right? So, yeah, I remember that when everyone's mad at me, I'm like, I'll say all these nice things, and I want you to keep saying that. Funny story. So when me and Ashley met at Keep Colorado Springs Queer, she had these wristbands that said, I am a poet. And it was ironic because I had just got a tattoo that said, I am a poet. And so I was like, that's weird. but also funny. And she was like, "Hey," and then like we kept moving, and then and then like yeah, we featured together and talked about poetry and like all the things, and yeah, the rest is history without all the mushy details. But I want to say like I really love the thing that's been happening of like building and growing. And actually is a phenomenal builder and grower, and she is so passionate about what she does. And like people don't often see the behind the scenes work that it takes to do what she does, what she wants to do, and what she will continue to do. And the late nights, tears and laughs and handshaking of things, and she continues to like show me like why we should keep doing this. One day I'm like, let's just ride off into the sunset and call it a day. And she'll do something that's like, yeah, let's keep doing this. So I love you very much. And just appreciate you for everything that you do. That's my poem. Okay, bye. I was always like, so like when we started, I was like, hey, so like what if like you did the front things, like you were the face, and I like stood back here and like did some other things. And she was like, okay, cool. That turned into, and a lot of it was like people were like, oh, Chris, thanks for putting this together. And I'm like, no, that wasn't me. That was all. Actually took like a year plus for people to really start being like, patriarchy, Chris is the one that did it. Like, no, Chris was not the one that did it. That was all actually, I was probably watching some TV show while I actually was like sitting on these emails, and I'm like, you need help? And she's like, no, I got it. And I'm like, okay, I'm rooting for you, boo. So, yeah, it's great to really work with her and build with her and like continue to. We always were like, we were both like, when I started doing Black Voices Matter, it was because I felt a need, and I felt that our voices in this city was not being heard. And Ashley felt the same way in being like, I'm tired of going to events where the people don't look like me, but they want to share our stories. And when we were doing Black Voices, it means so much when people are like, I didn't know there were Black people in this town. This is where all the Black people are. This is amazing. I feel seen. I feel heard. And like being able to put on events where, you know, we're putting together 2 to 3 events a month, and people that are like, oh, I want to come to an event, but I want to talk about my disability, but I don't know. And we're like, we have an event for that. And people are like, oh, well, we have an event for that. We have an event for that. And like, and if we don't have an event for that, we're like, hey, would you like to put that event together? Because we will totally support you and be there for you and help you with that. And like, it just feels great to be able to see our community flourishing and seeing our community realize that they can do poetry, be heard through poetry, and do more than just poetry if they want to. Because so many people were like, oh, nobody wants to listen to me talk about being Black. And I was like, I do. I want to hear you talk about being a brown person. I want to hear you talk about being in Colorado Springs. And like, people being like, yeah, let me do that. And they're doing it. And I just want to appreciate and show love to everybody in this community, because it's, I guess it's very hard here, especially when you're a person of color. But knowing that you have a space and there's space being built for you is what really keeps me going. So thank y'all. So I'll read a poem now. I'm not used to like a stand and what is this thing called? A podium, yeah, that thing. So if I keep hitting my face, that is why. So with all that other talking, I'll just do one poem. And I wrote this poem with Ashley in mind. It's called Spark. When the spark fades, so does the confidence, the passion, the will. When the spark fades, you question everything. Wonder how you got this far. Wonder how you lasted this long. Wonder what to do next. Everything feels like a misstep, spiraling towards a brick wall. When the spark fades, so does hope, so does dreams, so does chances. When the spark fades, nights feel empty, days turn into failed accomplishments. More like shell, more like void, more like collateral damage. When the spark fades, you push through. Keep finding your embers to light a new flame that's massive, brighter, unwilling to burn out. When the spark fades, you will find yourself again. Find your reasons why. Find why those moments are worth the setbacks. When the spark fades, you will not question it. You will not try to control it. You will not become hardened. When the spark fades, there will be closure. There will be peace. There will be trust. When the spark fades, learn, breathe, begin again, and you've always been the spark that turned into more flames. And before I step off, I just wanted to say, like, you will always be my flame and my spark. And when you're having those days where you want to give up, just know that I will continue to be your spark and your flame to light the way.
Well, heck. Okay. The job of Poet Laureate is to support the mission and goals of the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate project, to build a literary arts community through poetry by developing an appreciation of written and performance poetry and inspiring and celebrating poetry and poets in the Pikes Peak region with dynamic programs of engagement, advocacy, and education. The Poet Laureate is a champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion within the literary arts. The duties and responsibilities of the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate for the 2-year term is that Ashley is committing to at least 10 events for the community per year. 6 of those events will be with the library, 4 of those are citywide events. Ashley agrees to collaborate with the steering committee in organizing a day-long poetry conference in April for the celebration of National Poetry Month. In April, when Colorado Springs nominates its first Youth Poet Laureate, new program, Ashley has agreed to engage in a mentoring relationship with that young person. Ashley has agreed to be able to represent the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate project in public to a wide variety of age groups, socioeconomic groups, cultural backgrounds and heritages, and to all levels of educational attainment. And at the discretion of Ashley, she is invited to engage in larger and more activities. And knowing Ashley, she's just going to thrive and go for it. The Poet Laureate is selected through a competitive application and interview process, juried by Michael Ferguson, Juan Morales, who's not able to be here, Andy Vick from Copper, Molly Wingate from Poetry Heals, and myself. It is a pleasure to say that the number of applicants is evidence of a thriving literary arts community in Colorado. Poetry is where beauty and bravery meet, and Ashley Cornelius is poetry itself. She already knows how to best serve this appointment, and she embodies what it is to celebrate writers and writing. We can trust that Ashley will put pen to paper, that Ashley will remain urgent, that she will break boundaries, that she will be a surprise, and that she will dig deep and provide positive space for others. Ashley is going to be an incredible ambassador for the arts in the Pikes Peak region. Ashley, would you please come up here and join me? Great. Ashley, because you have, through spoken word programming, your advocacy for mental health, your writing, and especially the beauty and inspiration of your spoken word poetry, you have proven your ability to be an outstanding poet laureate. With pride, we have selected you for this responsibility, privilege, and honor. For the installation, I ask that you all stand as you are willing and able, and repeat with me, because it is our job as a community to give her this charge. Ashley Cornelius, we, the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate community, and the community of the Pikes Peak region, hereby charge you with the responsibility and bestow upon you the honor and privilege of inspiring poets and poetry in our communities. Ashley Cornelius, do you accept this responsibility and honor? Yeah! It is my pleasure to introduce to you the 6th Poet Laureate of the Pikes Peak region, Miss Ashley Cornelius.
Thank you all so much for being here and for being a part of a very beautiful and important day for me. I grew up in Colorado Springs most of my life, and I never felt like I belonged. I was always trying to fit myself into a space. There were people who looked like me. There was an art that represented who I was. And so being able to have the opportunity to be that, to reflect myself and my identity and the identities of this community in art and the face of poetry is something I do not take with me. I am so grateful for everyone who is here and all the faces who have inspired me. I've said in many interviews, I am a community poet laureate. I would not be here without my community, without those believing in me, trusting in me, holding me in grace and support to be here with you all today. So before I begin, I just want to say thank you all so much for trusting me, for allowing me to take this position, and for being your 6th Poet Laureate. So first and foremost, I want to thank my parents who could not be here today, but they are an incredible driving force and have always envisioned this for me. And so I'm so grateful for their love and trust and helping me, as Chris said, when I'm having panic attacks or crying or people are calling me back, all the things that happen when you organize. and just this steady beat that you are valued and enough and important. And so I'm so grateful for my family that way. I want to say special shout outs to the people from Denver who drove here, my grad school family, my artist family, my Denver Health family who was here. It is not, I do not take it lightly that you'll have showed up today and in this space and in this honor. So I'm so grateful to those near and far who are celebrating with me and getting this honor. And thank you to the poets who were here. If you didn't know, there was a clear line. First I met Franklin, then I met Nico, and then I met Chris. But it is all through poetry that I have found a way to survive and that I am thriving. And so, of course, I'm going to read you all some poetry. Does that feel good for you all? Yes? And I have a scepter and a crown, and I'm really pumped about this, everybody. I'm really excited. I'm going to take it off because it's going to fall off my head, but I'm very happy. So, thank you all so much. So I'm going to do some pieces for you all, and this first piece, I think, is my signature piece. This is the one that I do most often. This is called Defy Silence. People have often called us Black folks loud, boisterous, and thundering. Our laugh cackles and exuberant exalting seemed uncouth in certain spaces. Our voices, cacophony to most ears, jazz goes with a seasoned palate. We turn up to turbulent bass levels, we bump Tupac, we blast Tony Braxton, we crank up Billie Holiday, we provide front row concerts to the entire neighborhood. We do not know how to mourn quietly. We wail and scream in hopes our voices are resurrection enough for our burial. Our voices are the literal reincarnations of our ancestors' prayers. Even our whispers are seismic. There is no distinguishing between inside and outside voices. As caged birds now free, we sing too loud and too often, making up for years of oppressed silence because being loud means you're alive. It means you have found a way to survive and are celebrating, and we are defying darkness with demonstrative declarations of love. Dr. King once said, our lives begin to end the moment we stay silent about the things that matter, which is to say, Black lives matter, which is to say, Black voices matter. When textbooks silence slavery and call it a cultural exchange, we get louder. When innocent Black girls go missing and the news reports a cat stuck in the tree instead of her name, instead of her picture, instead of an Amber Alert, we get louder. And when innocent Black men are murdered and their killers are called heroes, we get louder. See, we have been loud for centuries. We will continue to raise our voices against injustice. We will dedicate our harmonies to Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose voice was powerful, and his impact is still reverberating in our ears today. Do not think this poem is about the volume of our voices. This is about speaking up in a world that is expecting you to stay silent. So, will you join us and be loud? Will you defy silence with your voice? Thank you. And so I have to name being the first Black woman poet laureate is a big deal, everyone. It's a real big deal. And it is a big deal because of where we live. And it might not be the reason you think. It's a big deal because there are Black women who live here who are artists. There are brown people here who are artists. There are queer people who are artists. There are trans people who are artists. There are folks with disabilities who are artists. What this means is that our communities can be represented in the front facing of art. This is the start of representation that so many people before us, as we heard, have set in stone. And so I do not take this lightly. That this means something monumental for our city. We can never go back and say that diversity is not here, that we do not belong here, that this is not our community, this is ours. We are here, we have been here, and we will continue to raise our voices. And with that being said, I am committed to poetry, and this next piece is the ways in which I will commit. Commit poetry. Expose your inner thoughts to willing participants. Burn down the stage and leave it smoldering, let the ashes of your words permeate this space. You will be the suspect in a series of fires. Your arson tongue has no plans of stopping. Snatch attention and edges, steal gasps, rob the audience of their misinformation, replace it with your premeditated experiences. Murder the mic and bury the body in the back of your mind with the rest of your trauma. Do not go quietly. Scream, not guilty, with your fingers crossed behind your back. Aggravate society with the assault of your sound, arm yourself with literary devices. Shotgun similes and musket metaphors. Drop symbolism bombs, throw tear gas vulnerability. Use your sharp lines to cut a bitch. Throw your fist in the air as a warning shot. Distribute your voice like dime bags. Be the plug the community needs. Get high on your own supply of the value of your product, the way it makes the consumer feel when they snort each line your shit is pure. Take the money and skip town. Wash it clean. Launder it out to dry. Use it to buy back your hostage voice. Pay off your insecurities, assume a new identity, cut your hair, change your name, and most importantly, walk with the confidence of a mediocre white man. Hustle your speech, disturb the peace, incite vernacular revolution, riot in between the lines of your sheets, picket with your pen, fuck the policing of expression, resist silence, vandalize our history books and rewrite the narratives as truth, break the sound system and commit poetry. Thank you all. I have two more pieces for you, and just thank you. I was crying so much. This means a lot to me, and seeing all your faces and being here, and also that this is a vehicle, right? And that I get to share the words with the meeting. And as we heard before, my poetry may be uncomfortable. It may make you angry. It may make you happy. It may experience joy, but you will feel. And that is what I'm here for. I'm here for us to feel and to regain and to be in community with our words. And this piece I'm going to share is something that I wrote exclusively for Pikes Peak Library District. And you get to close your eyes for the first part. Yeah, if you want. Or let your gaze fall just a little bit to figure it out. And here we go. Imagine the main character of a story. See her running through an open field, her skin shimmering in the sun, hair a riptide of waves in the wind. Laughter spirals from her lips to heaven in between songs her grandmother taught her, running towards the open arms of her partner. What does she look like? What color is her skin? What texture is her hair? What language does she sing? Who is her partner? You can open your eyes. We fill in these gaps with a single story, with the most common idea of main characters, often denying ourselves full representation even in our imaginations. We do not do this innately. This practice is learned and instilled from the books we read, the shows we watch, and the art we engage in. The content matters. Allowing someone to be seen and validated in art, to meet someone like yourself in the pages of a hardback book where the main character reflects parts of your identity, where the story addresses the struggles and joys of your lived experience. A mural that displays a muse that looks just like you. Art is a portal to curated worlds that have been saving us for centuries, opening perspectives and connection, transforming vulnerability into validation. But what if we didn't have to fill in the gaps? What if art displayed were already celebrations of diversity and equity? What if I could make one person feel represented and safe by the stories I shared? What if her deep brown skin shimmered in the sun as her thick, coarse hair waved across her head like a riptide, singing a Spanish song her grandmother taught her as she clung to her side in the kitchen. She forever smells fresh chilies when she sings. The embrace of her wife is spellbound magic as their laughs meet in the sky. What if I didn't ask you to fit yourself into the work. What if we gave each other stories where we were already a part of the narrative? We get to create and promote inclusive stories, voices, and art. We honor experiences and content outside of historical standards. In vulnerability and art, we can decolonize our imagination and diversify our world. I have one last piece, but I do also want to name, it seems briefly, that I am the co-director of Poetry 719. Hey, that's a callback. We do stuff as we do stuff sometimes, like currently, right now. And later, at the San Francisco, that'll be stuff we're doing. We'll try this one more time. Poetry 719. So I have to send so much love to Phil and to Chris for being in leadership of Poetry 719. We are a Black-run poetry organization. I believe we are the only Black-run poetry organization here in Colorado Springs, and the work that we are doing is part of the reason why I believe that I'm Poet Laureate. Because I've got to engage with these communities, I've got to see you, I've got to hear your work, I've got to experience it. And so I cannot leave the stage without thanking both of you and the work that we do for Poetry 719, and for all of the people who show up, who continue to support us, who continue to go to the open mics and the Zooms, and to give us donations so that we can pay artists and that we can continue poetry to flourish. So thank you all from my heart and from Poetry 719. I have one last piece, and this piece is 100% about me. And as a therapist, we have to care for ourselves before we can do anything else. And so in this piece, I pledge to myself that I will honor myself in all the ways that I see fit so that I can continue to give to my community, to share, and to represent you all as Poet Laureate. So this last piece is called Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the honoring of every form of this body, and to my ancestors for whom I stand, one goddess, under love, indivisible, with equity and equality for all. I am committed to the protection and maintenance of my temple. I will lay offerings at my feet. I will love and cherish my body in perpetuity. I promise to listen and tend to my needs. I will respect and maintain my boundaries. Only speak love and kindness over this body. I will dedicate myself to the softening of rough skin and the protection of melanin. I stand guard in defense of my heart. I am at the beck and call of my mental health. I will nurse the wounds of the past and practice radical self-acceptance. Every night, I will light candles in the catacombs of my trauma. I will honor the parts of me that have suffered, and I will nurse the survivor I've become. I will accentuate my curves. I will touch my scars often as a reminder that I have overcome and healed. I will openly celebrate and announce my love for this body. I will walk with my head held high, feeling the beauty of my natural hair. I will allow myself a full range of emotions without judgment or fear. I will smile at my reflection and treat myself with respect. I will diligently remind myself that I am enough, and I always have been. I pledge allegiance to me. Thank you all so much.